Welcome back to On the Line. We just finished up having a blast with Tobias Schütze, Dr. Tobias. And in this discussion, we talk a little bit at the beginning about his role as a professor at the seminary in South Africa and what that looks like. But we spent the majority of the time just talking about the fact that he grew up in Germany and he was educated in Germany and just what that looks like. You know, this is the heritage place of the Lutheran Church, but it's had a lot of waves of liberalism throughout the years. So we tackle what that looks like historically, how that affects the Lutheran Church in Germany today, and we even tackle some different places in history, such as the Third Reich and how that led to some of the things that took place in World War II. So we hope you enjoy this conversation. I thought it was just fascinating, and Tobias is an absolute blast. So enjoy, take care, God bless.
Germany still has the largest Lutheran church in the world. The church attendance is below 3%. It's not very many people. We just dropped below 50% membership. Less than 50% of the German population are members of a Christian church. Eastern Germany is, I think, after the Czech Republic, the second most atheistic, agnostic area in the world. The communists did a great job there. When I studied at a university, I would say that probably half of my fellow students did not believe in God.
And these are students that are studying theology.
That are studying theology to become pastors, which is a crazy amount, I think. Just think about that at the seminary. What makes me optimistic is the love for this church, which I think is important, because if we don't have that, then any disagreement could be the one that you want to split over. I really try to be hopeful, and I think there are some reason for it, not too much though.
So if it's a 17-hour flight, you're eating at 2 a.m, and you're changing massive time zones and everything like that. But if you just don't eat, then you can reset your system when you land, and your body adjusts to the time zone difference much more. So I have not tried it, but
yeah, I mean, flying here from Europe or Africa isn't that big of a deal because you just have to stay awake longer.
Mm-hmm.
The other way around is much more difficult, I think.
When you go back home,
because you have to fall asleep. And you can't force your body to fall asleep. You can force your body to stay awake, but not the other way around. Really.
Yeah.
So that's the bigger issue. But so I will have a day or 10 hours in London, so I will be tired anyways. I think I'm quite positive.
Yeah, 10 hours in London anyway.
10 hours in London, 12 hours. It's really fun, I hope.
Yeah. So what's your take now? Because we went to the MLS game last night. So what's your take on MLS soccer versus European soccer versus South African soccer? Like, what's your understanding of kind of the layout?
So I would say it's probably third division German soccer. That's kind of would fit. But
really, MLS is like third
division in Germany, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as aggressive as European soccer, by far less aggressive.
Like less contact,
less defend. It's the style of defense is just very different, I would argue.
Okay.
It's just not good.
Yeah.
And South African soccer is very much on this. The individual player wants to look good. So they kind of don't emphasize passing and everything. And so it's a lot of mistakes that happen.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care for defense at all. So South African soccer is worse than American MLS soccer, I would say. European German soccer it's just a different level. And then fan experience and everything, obviously.
Yeah. So what's the highest level?
Highest level,
other than like World
Premier
Cup,
League would be the high, or Champions League.
That
would be team soccer. That would be Champions League. Is kind of the best European teams.
Okay, would that be like all? Okay, so that would be like the best team from Germany plays the best team from
So
Italy and France,
England, and all those.
Yeah. And which country is the best?
The best league is the Premier League in England.
That's Manchester United.
And I mean, at the moment, Arsenal and Manchester City are competing for the title next week, I think.
Okay.
And Arsenal is in the Champions League final as well.
Okay.
So they are. It's a game changer. If you watch Bundesliga, which is a German league, and then you watch Premier League, it's a different sport. It's unbelievable. It's so much fun. But then you have your personal kind of love for your team, and so I watch Bundesliga rather than I love Premier League.
Okay.
I watch Premier League. Yeah.
And what's the atmosphere like in different areas?
In the English Premier League, because you're not allowed to stand there. They had like a they had a tragedy in the 90s, end of 80s, I think.
Okay.
And 90 people died. And
90 people
90
died?
people died.
What happened? Was it a riot?
I don't think it was a riot. It was there were too many fans on the stands, and then they pushed onto the field, and the police closed the gates, kind of thing. So they were just tramped over.
Yeah.
And then but there's very situational. So when there's a good pass or anything really, they will clap, they will cheer. In Germany, it's a very...
So are they allowed to stand if there's like a goal?
They're allowed to stand up.
Okay. They're just not...
Relatively soon, the stewards will say, okay, have a seat, please. You're not allowed to drink in England.
At the games?
At the games. You can drink under the stands, like outside kind of.
Mm-hmm. So they pregame.
You can pregame, but you can't watch the game while you're having a beer in your hand.
Okay.
In Germany, it's a bit different. It's pretty much the whole game. The one group, kind of the supporter group, is singing, is jumping, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But they are not that focused on the actual game, like what is going on at this moment. So it's a bit strange, and both have their advantages, let's say. The German one is more fun if you just want to experience football once.
Like the energy.
Because the energy is unbelievable, depending on the game, obviously, and all that. But sometimes when they have like real presentations of the whole stand, and it's amazing. And then you have fireworks and stuff, but not fireworks that are kind of planned by the...
Yeah, you were telling me, explain this. You were telling me this last night. This blows my mind. So
fireworks are obviously illegal in the stands, but you have these things that you use for, like on ships, to show that you need
like
kind
flares.
Yeah, you have the flares.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know, what would it be? 4,000 degrees, maybe Fahrenheit, I think. I think 2,000 Celsius. And they would just smuggle them into the stadium. Either they know somebody... I have heard they brought them in via ambulance because they're obviously not checked.
Yeah.
Or they bring them in like somewhere at the body so that when they kind of feel you, they don't feel it. And then they just burn them.
So you're
and it's fun.
In the stand, you're all crushed together.
You usually have some at the front,
mm-hmm.
like a lot of guys at the front, and then kind of ways up. But you also have them just in the stand, just a guy next to you.
Just lights up a flare.
And it's fun. It is fun. Like, you can't bring a child into that, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't want a child in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're live, by the way, Bennett. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, man, look at those new headphones. Those things are nifty.
Good.
Yeah, we went to the MLS game last night, Minnesota United, and we brought. So my wife went because it was Mother's Day. So
that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, so for Mother's Day, it was my wife, it was Tobias, and it was our two older kids. And yeah, it was fun. It was cool.
It was really
You were kind of telling them, like explaining the game to them. And yeah.
Yeah, that's my game. I mean, it was my, what was it? 167th game, I think, that I watched.
Yeah, 107th stadium.
Stadium, yeah.
Great. Yeah. Where would this rank on the stadiums? Top third, bottom third, middle third?
So I would always argue I love older stadiums. So this is a new one.
Mm-hmm.
You also have obviously larger stadiums. I would say probably in the middle somewhere. It's a well-built stadium. It's nice. It was well done, I would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was cool. So Tobias Schütze. How close was I? Close enough? Doctor as well. You've got your PhD, and just recently you were ordained.
Yeah.
So if you can,
so
if you can explain kind of your background, because you've got an interesting background, and we're gonna kind of trace that a little bit as we go through our conversation. So, kind of like where you were born. We've met before, so you can kind of just explain what's your pathway that's led you to here.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Germany, in northern Germany. I'm a pastor's kid. My father's German, my mother is South African. So I was born in Germany I grew up in Hermannsburg. That is, for the mission, especially in South Africa, quite a big deal, but not that big a deal in America. Small village, moved to Hamburg when I was 16 years old. Then started studying business, dropped out after a year, and then started theology because we don't have our system is a bit different. We don't have a bachelor's and master's program. We kind of start out with theology right away after high school, and then we go 6 years of theology, kind of an included pre-sem if you want.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so I did that in Oberursel at the partner seminary of Fort Wayne, St. Louis. Went to Fort Wayne for a year in 2017. That's where we met.
Mm-hmm.
And then went to a state university for a year. So that's also something we do in Germany, that you kind of get the feel, what is that like, learn from kind of important professors or professors that are well known, even though I didn't really take those classes.
Yeah.
And then I came back to Oberursel, finished up in 21. So with a master's degree, if you want, or something comparable to that.
How many years in total was that?
And then that was,
that microphone's terrible. Yeah, go
that was 6. It was 6.5 years, I think.
6.5 years.
So I started in 14 with theology and then ended in 21.
Okay.
And then I continued teaching at the seminary. I basically put my vicarage on hold because we do the vicarage after our academic studies. Put that on hold. Started teaching in Oberursel as like an assistant. So I did the basic biblical courses, so introduction into the New Testament, introduction into the Old Testament, and then one systematics course. Wrote my PhD on the side, or the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a year and a half, I was at a wedding, my cousin's wedding in South Africa, and my uncle comes up to me and asks, do you want to move over here in 2 weeks? And I did. It took me 5 weeks though, not 2. But I moved over. I started working at the seminary in South Africa, the Lutheran Theological Seminary. And I've been there for 3 years now. Began my vicarage as well, then in South Africa. I finished that now, was ordained in March. And what else do I miss? Oh yeah, the PhD. I finished that last year in January.
And what was your PhD on again? We'll talk about this later, but...
Yeah, my PhD was on the topic of interchurch recognition, or ecumenism. One could know.
Yeah. So let's jump to your position at the seminary in South Africa. So what does that look like? Especially for most of our audience is U.S. based. We do have some international presence, but for them, they're going to think of our structure, right? Our seminary, Fort Wayne, St. Louis. So what's the seminary like in South Africa?
Yeah, so it's a different academic level. We provide a diploma level, which is just below bachelor's. So if you would finish our studies, you could go on to a university and finish your bachelor's within a year.
Mm-hmm.
So then you would have a bachelor's in theology. Meaning they come to us, very few come to us right after high school. Mostly we have every age group that you can think of, starting with guys that are 18 or 20, going up to guys that are 60, 65.
Mm-hmm.
Predominantly somewhere in the middle. Most of them are somewhere in the middle. So when I started out my first year I think it was the last class, I asked the class, how old are you guys? Because I realized they're a bit older. And I was the youngest. I was a lecturer, but I was the youngest of all the ones that graduated that year. So that was cool, but most of them were like in their 30s maybe.
Mm-hmm.
We do have the normal, let's say, subjects that you would like Old Testament, New Testament, church history, systematic theology, practical theology. We have 4 full-time professors, so it's much smaller than our seminaries here in the US. About 35 students. We are trying to expand now. We're building a new building. I'm trying to expand to maybe 50. That would be, I think, ideal. And they come from all over Southern Africa, especially. So not just South Africa. They are not bound to the churches that kind of run the seminary. So we have students from other churches as well. It's not like here, I think you need to be a member of the LCMS to do an MDiv program, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right, yeah. Because if not, you would do the MA, or obviously we have our PhD programs that bring in people from different backgrounds.
But I think kind of to educate towards the office of the ministry, you would have to be an LCMS member.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not the case for us. We have, the students are Lutherans, but we have some students.
So all of them are Lutheran?
All of them are Lutherans. Some of them are not LCMS affiliated Lutherans.
Yeah, so like Lutheran churches. World Federation.
Yeah, for example. And the professors, lecturers, they are all ILC, meaning International Lutheran Council. That is kind of the LCMS affiliated churches, one could say, from that group. So we are all from churches with which the LCMS is in church fellowship.
Yeah, so what's that like then? Because, that's something we didn't experience, right? So you've got a classroom and you've got, ELCA affiliated, right? LCMS affiliated, and they're all in the classroom and they're all learning the same stuff. And you're saying that the instructors are LCMS affiliated, right? So what's the culture like in the classroom?
You don't really see the differences there too much. You have some students that love to kind of provoke a little bit, but not bad. So you might have someone that asks about women's ordination, for example, or something like it. But it's not like you can't really make out the distinction. Okay, here's where the class is divided or something. And it's usually one guy in the class that might be ELCA affiliated.
Okay, so it's a strong majority that are
or
LCMS affiliated.
Affiliated, yeah. Affiliated doesn't necessarily mean church fellowship, because in Africa there's a lot of movement at the moment. So a lot of changes. But usually they are. The African Lutherans that we teach are usually rather traditional, Bible-focused, all those things that where we discuss liberal, conservative, maybe in Europe or in America. That's a deal in Africa, but it's not that big of a deal, I think.
So is the divide less so in Africa than it would be in Europe and America?
I would argue so. Or it's not such a clear divide between these lines. There are different divides. I think there are different aspects that are bigger in the classroom. When it's the language, for example. It's more, you're happy about, for anyone who is well spoken in English, for example. It's just a good thing.
Yeah.
Or who can present something, who can preach in English. And otherwise, you kind of have to focus on how do I teach a guy that speaks Zulu as a first language, but struggles with English? How do you do that? So it's different problems than really the church affiliation. That I realized that only after a couple of weeks, which church they actually attend or where they belong. And that's nothing that kind of is on top of it the whole time.
So what are some of the debated topics in South Africa, right? So in the U.S., obviously, it's going to be things like women's ordination, sexuality, different kind of political things that bleed into the church. So what's it look like in South Africa?
Yeah, I think one has to differentiate between what is happening in South Africa overall. There are a lot of, violence against women, like gender-based violence. Eco-theology is a big thing nowadays.
What's that?
Eco-theology is basically how to care for the planet, like a theology on environmentalism and all those things. So they take up a lot of the contemporary issues. Obviously, racism and xenophobia are big topics in theology. Reconciliation because of apartheid is still going on as a topic. Those are not necessarily the topics we focus on too much at the seminary. We focus on confessional Lutheran theology, and so it's in our circle. The debates are probably church governance is a big one. So how the churches are to be governed, and what does good governance, good stewardship mean? Then we also have the topic of ecumenism, especially in the traditionally German church. The discussion, because we also have like a more liberal, more conservative church, like an LCMS and a ELCA affiliated church there, but they look the same. And they are quite, like even the ELCA affiliated church is rather conservative, especially in the countryside. But they do bring in pastors from Germany, which changes a lot then. Because they went to German seminary, German university, and they are on a different level.
And I do want to get to German a little bit and kind of understand what's going on there.
So when they come in, they change the culture a bit, obviously, by preaching and everything. But the congregations are normally quite conservative. So within the congregations, there is the idea that we're the same. And then the issue is, in a way, to argue, no, that's just it's a different church body. No, just because they speak the same language as we do, and we are both minority churches in our country, we are kind of the only ones that speak German in South Africa. We can't just say, okay, we're the same and let's do everything together. I don't think, the question then is, what, can we do anything together or nothing? And if yes, then how? And so that's a debate that is going on now for a couple of years. And I'm not sure if it will ever end, just because I don't think it can really, because they're so intertwined community-wise and all that.
Yeah, that is a different situation because you've got an ethnic identity, like you said. Like if you're kind of German settlers there, that's a pretty big difference from the surrounding culture. But then also the language identity, right? So you guys speak a different language than the surrounding group, so that's going to naturally cause you to do business together, farm together. So all your other areas of life are going to be very intertwined.
They're at the same place, like they are in the same kind of villages. They run schools together, or they intermarry the whole time.
Yeah.
So there is just a lot of familiarity and a lot of reasons to think that it's pretty much the same thing from the outside, kind of, when you look at it.
Is there any opportunities for crossover? I mean, that's not the right word. So is there any opportunity for bringing kind of that ELCA group in? Like, are they more open to kind of LCMS affiliated conservatism more so than, say, America? Because I'm guessing that some of the cultural trends in the West are not as severe there. So are there more opportunities for conversation, or are they pretty rooted in who they are?
No, there are reasons for conversation. So we have ongoing conversation with them. And if I would claim here that we can bring them in next week, I think that would be probably not been good.
Yeah.
But I think there is a strong emotional attachment to your church, and also like, oh, I don't like this church because, and then the reasoning might be good or bad. So if you argue that we will probably have church fellowship soon, that's probably not the case. But we have ongoing conversation with each other, and I think we learn more about each other, like what is actually going on in your church, instead of kind of talking about them the whole time. And so that was strengthened, this kind of debate even, and disagreement, even being open about the disagreements. I think that's important, because for a long time, not just in South Africa anyway, I think we just mentioned, or in ecumenical circles, it's a lot about, oh yeah, we have some similarities here and there, but then you stop and don't talk about the differences. And the differences are the interesting part, because that's kind of the reason why we're not together.
Yeah.
And so they kind of changed the view on each other, and also learn about each other. I think that's kind of where we're standing at the moment.
So what have you learned in those conversations? Like what surprised you about their opinions on various topics?
So I haven't been involved in the kind of church leadership discussions that are going on at the moment. I know they spoke about scripture and all that. And I heard that my bishop was surprised that they kind of agreed with a lot of things that we said about scripture, I mean, inerrancy and all that. At the same time, one is wondering how they can say that on one side, and then on the other side disagree on specific issues.
What are some of those issues?
I mean, ordination would be the classic one, probably. So that is a bit of a, how can you say that? That's a bit of an issue that you have, that you agree on something, or you just talk to the wrong person, and then the next person will just say something completely different. So to pinpoint it to aspects, and also to pinpoint the other church on, hey, this is what you stand for. Just as we say with the queer subscription to the Book of Concord, this is, if you don't teach this, you're out, kind of thing. And then other discussions, what you feel is, what you feel in a way is a lot that they are rather conservative. They are, like, just mentality-wise. So when it comes to ethical standpoints, they are very conservative. And that whatever the church leadership says is obviously not necessarily what the parishioners say, as always and as anywhere. So I think that's a big thing that one has to realize, and then has to ask the question, okay, what do we do with it now? Does that mean we are the same because we agree with a lot of the parishioners, or do we still have to say no because of church leadership, or because there are pastors in your church that, and we can't do anything together? And I think that's a difficult thing, especially when you say, but in this town we are both similar, or in this area, or that pastor's okay. How do we deal with that?
So the lay people, the parishioners, are much more in line with what you would what you would confess in
Yeah.
comparison to some of the leadership or the pastors?
I don't think you can make a general rule out of that.
Okay.
Just because but on the countryside, especially on the countryside, I think
Mm.
that there is a case to make for that. Yeah.
Hmm. So what, with that in mind, if we go to Germany,
Yeah.
right? So what's the landscape in Lutheranism and Christianity in Germany? Because you Oberursel,
Yeah.
right, is one data point that you've had, but then also even the state church,
Sure.
right? So which would be much more Lutheran World Federation.
Yeah.
Right. So what's that landscape? How are they going about theology? What issues are they processing? What are their stances that might surprise us?
Yeah, it's so maybe to just paint a picture, Germany still has the largest Lutheran church in the world. The only reason why that doesn't show on like statistics is because we have multiple Lutheran church in Germany, multiple state churches. It's like every state kind of has their own church. It would be like the LCMS would be a Missouri synod, and then you would have a different, I mean, you do have a Wisconsin synod, but kind of an affiliated synod because your synod is only in that state.
Mm.
And so Germany has, I think it's 7 or 8 Lutheran state churches. And in total, they maybe total 10 million members, which I think is the highest number in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Church attendance is below 3%. So I don't know how you should count, but
Yeah.
it's not very many people. So that's the landscape. We have a lot of universities. So the state church and the government are closer connected than in America, for example, or in South Africa for that matter. So we have government universities, but the churches decide who can become a professor. So they have to agree with the government who can become a theology professor.
Mm.
And the SELK, which is the LCMS partner church, we are 30,000 members, less than 30,000 members by now, I think.
Okay.
So it's a completely different world kind of thing. And we are especially in northern German rural areas and a bit in eastern Germany, but that's kind of the strongholds are the rural areas. And then in the cities, we basically only started after World War II when we had a lot of refugees from the east, what is now Poland, fleeing into the cities and building churches there.
Mm-hmm. So that's a wild. So 9.97 million Lutherans in Germany would be not affiliated with the LCMS.
Yeah.
And 30,000 are.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at that, the 9.97 million, are they all united in a way that like around Lutheran World Federation? Like theologically, is that whole group aligned?
The whole group is aligned. The whole group is aligned with the ELCA, with the LWF, Lutheran World Federation. Yeah.
So how did that happen historically?
So you have state churches in Germany since the Reformation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they basically not the emperor, whoever the leader was, the prince or something, took over the rule over the church, became more or less a bishop. And that stayed till 1918, when the First World War ended. And Germany became a democracy. But the churches kind of remained in between, something like that. And you just became, wherever you move, you become a member of that church.
Mm-hmm.
So for my whole life, officially speaking, on government record, I was a non-religious person. Because if I would have been evangelical or Protestant, I would have had to pay church taxes to this liberal church.
Yeah.
To the state church. And I didn't want to do that. And so they're intertwined. They're not the same. So you can't say it's a government's church or something. The government doesn't really interfere with it. But obviously the government funds a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And they, for example, you have to pay taxes if you're a member of the church, and the government takes them, distributes them. And it came so that's the thing. And then the SELK kind of was established, or the predecessors of the SELK were established in the 19th century, when, especially in Prussia, would be the biggest state in Germany at the time, became a union. So they united, the Reformed Church and the Lutheran Church united. Quite interesting. The king was quite a pious man,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, but he was Reformed. So the king was Reformed, but his state was Lutheran. And so he wanted to commune with his wife, who was from Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. I hope my church history professor isn't listening. And so he wanted to commune with her, but couldn't because he was Reformed, she was Lutheran. And then he came up with the idea. He wrote an own liturgy. So he wrote the liturgy for a unionist service, a divine service. So that church slowly became a unionist church. And we have a few of those churches in Germany as well now, nowadays. And then in these churches, Lutheran split off. That was in Prussia especially. And then we have other churches where Lutherans disagreed with the Lutheran state church's decisions. That's, for example, Saxony. So where Walther is from and those guys. So they disagreed with the state church decision and became a Lutheran independent church within a Lutheran region. So it's a bit different, and that brought a lot of trouble to the SELK predecessor churches, just because they had a lot of disagreements here and there. It took them till 1972 to unite as a SELK in all of Germany, or Western Germany at the time.
So when did liberalism really start to come in, theologically speaking? And I mean, this isn't like your PhD or anything like that. So I mean, you can speak in some generalities, of course. But yeah, so when did that start to come in? Because of course, if you're thinking, as an American, when you think German Lutheran, you're thinking, okay, Martin Luther, you're thinking like the hotbed of Lutheranism, right? And then you've got, the end of the Book of Concord, Martin Chemnitz, right? So you kind of go through this history of people that we know, but at some point, right, that whole ecosystem of Lutheranism shifts to something that would be foreign to the way that we understand what we believe and what we confess and how we look at Scripture in the Book of Concord. So when does that start to come in? Is that in the 8th or 19th century?
I think it's very difficult to say because in the 18th century especially, we have neo-theology, which means, there were people that were teaching how to milk a cow from the pulpit. Like that was what they did. They just taught,
not as just an illustration. That was just was the sermon.
That was a sermon.
Yeah.
So the goal was not to preach the gospel anymore, but to educate the people. So that is just obviously a very glimpse, and that was already in the 18th century. And I think even in Reformation times, you would find those guys, not in Wittenberg maybe, but somewhere, that didn't really preach the gospel or had different views. And so it's very difficult. Then you have Schleiermacher, obviously, in I think he wrote his famous book on religion in 1799, and then his big dogmatics book in 1830. And so his argument was religion is neither dogmatics, metaphysics, as he called it, so not a system, nor is it ethics, but it is it's emotion. And he was obviously directing it against false notions of, church is only dogmatics or church is only ethics, and kind of to try to combine the two or to give a third one. But he might have went too far. Yeah. Or he definitely did. And by that, the Bible, for example, had less value nowadays then. And so liberalism, as we know it today, probably came with the academic studies, actually, with biblical studies especially. So you have the higher critical method. You read the Bible just as a book, any book. Could also use The Lord of the Rings, for that matter, and find out what did he mean by that, when did he write it, and all these things. And there were great scholars at that time in the 19th century in Germany especially, who thought they knew everything, I would say. Sometimes when you look at these old commentaries, you're like, how did you know that this one word was secondary or tertiary or whatever? And how can you even claim this? And so boldly, they were very bold people.
So the academic egos got really big.
They got big, but it was also just if you lose the idea that the Bible is one book or has one author, and that God is somehow the author of the Bible, you kind of lose, or then you have to ask different questions, and you allow yourself different questions. I think you allow yourself the question: okay, why do we say Isaiah is one book? The name Isaiah doesn't come up after chapter 40 and all that. So why do we claim that that's one book?
Mhm.
Are there reasons why it's not? And that was then then they made studies on, okay, these words don't fit in or something. So the respect for this sanctity of the scriptures kind of faded, I would say.
Is there some academic pressure there too, where it's, okay, so you go, you get your PhD, you're trying to get a position here, and then, maybe you land this position, and now you want to do publications, right? So now, like you said, you're asking different questions. You look at scripture differently. And you're like, well, what if Isaiah has 3 authors? And then you spend your 2 years researching and trying to make this claim so that you can publish this book. And everyone goes, whoa, like Dr. So-and-so, Dr. I'm not Ziegler. Well, we actually have a Dr. Ziegler, so no, not that, right? But right, so he comes up with this big theory, and now he goes to the conferences, and he makes his claim, and he's an expert in this one area that no one else is even paying attention to, and then, but then you gain that kind of respect. So is there kind of that academic notion where you're trying to discover new things, and you're able to do that by asking new questions because the laws are different in how you're going to approach the scripture, right? Is that...
I think in academia, to kind of do new things so that you're recognized is there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at the literature nowadays, the papers that are published, there's so many strange topics.
Yeah.
I mean, usually it's not bad topics necessarily. There was one now, theology as disability, I think.
What is it?
Theology as disability.
Disability.
Disability, yeah.
Okay.
So you're like, and then I didn't read the whole thing, but it was strange. It's obviously strange.
Mm-hmm.
Because you kind of try to do something new, and that I think also something you can't really be criticized for. I don't know. I'm not in that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always on guard when somebody, you go to a conference or whatever, and then somebody's got this weird thing that they're so obsessed over, and I'm like, I've never even thought about this topic, but for them, like the whole world is like, whatever, like whether or not the Hebrew or the Greek is better in this certain section of the Apocrypha or something like that. And you're like, and like, that's their whole thing. I'm like, why is that so important to you? Right. But it's like, but they're able to go into conversations. They're able to like pick up this topic that they know more about than the other people. And then they're able to like talk about it and have some kind of like academic authority in that conversation. So I'm always on guard against that. I always love the people that come in and they're like, I was reading Augustine's Confessions again, and like he's talking about this, and like that kind of lines up. So in other words, it's a rediscovery of good theology and thinking and contemplating about that. I always respect those guys because they're going about their theology in kind of a humility and kind of a wonder at the good things that we've inherited versus, I'm going to write this new thing. I'm going to be the expert on this really niche topic. Yeah. So I don't know.
At the same time, you need those guys, I think. Like you need guys that do something that no one else is interested in.
Yeah.
Like take the New Testament, for example. The Nestle Aland, or what's the English version? The red one. The Greek one, the Greek New Testament. That's just the Nestle Aland. Yeah,
that's what we would use it.
You do have the text, and someone needs to decide what to put in the text at the top and what to put in the apparatus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so my professor in Münster, that's actually something that's being done in Münster where I studied. And there were assistant professors who did that the whole day. Absolute crazy people, obviously. But I mean, I can't do that. Yeah. I can't really make a decision if like A and B are better than B and E or whatever it is. So someone needs to do that as well. I agree with you that it's more interesting, I think, in a way, to have these guys rediscovering Augustine, Luther, or whatever, because we at least have a glimpse of what they read. We might have read it as well. Mm-hmm. And if this very niche thing comes up, we don't know anything. So we are just blown away from the beginning. We can't even ask questions. We are too dumb to ask questions in those things.
Yes, yeah.
And I agree with you on that. That's just intimidating. At the same time, it is also necessary. The question is, do you obsess about it? Like, do you think this is the most important topic there is? Mm-hmm. Or do you kind of have this is my specialty, but I know this is not, you can't do theology on this, like one idea or that a topic that I talk about.
Yeah, no, okay. So there's certainly a lane for it, but I wonder, so like for instance, Dr. Weinrich, Bill Weinrich, he is a relative expert in, what would it be? Like the the textual, like the history of the different documents. What's the right word for that? So like you said, like at the bottom, it's going to say like manuscripts, right? So he would do a little bit of that. And from what I understand, if I took classes with him 15 years earlier, he would have a bigger focus on that. At that point, he was kind of older, so he was more interested in like, John and kind of this intertwining of scripture and sacramental theology and whatnot. But we did spend a little bit of time on that. And at first glance, I'm like, this is important, right? Because there's different arguments on, no, this manuscript is not as good as this manuscript. And like you said, it's going to maybe change a word here or there and like what actually makes it into the ESV or the NIV or the King James or whatever. But then when push comes to shove, I'm like, but how much, like, why does that matter so much? Like, am I, as a pastor or as a lay, am I actually going to get into an argument over, whether or not this area in Philippians is from this manuscript or this manuscript? Like, does it even matter that much? But like, because we became hyper focused on that for like 150 years. And I feel like that's what became theological study, was arguing over these things. And then you miss the point of like, well, how do you translate, how do you communicate, the intertwining of scriptures and baptism and all of these things? Like, that's what communicates the beauty of Christianity.
I would agree with you, because I think we have lost, because if you are a scholar and you work with the Bible for that purpose, for that sole purpose of being a good scholar, you lose focus of the congregation, preaching and all that. You're not interested in that anymore, or that's at least not your focus. And I think that is in part, at least one part of the problem, because then you just read the text and want to figure something out about the text, but you don't have in mind that the people read it as scripture and should read it as scripture, for that matter. At the same time, I think these problems can come up and can be bigger. I mean, just take the long or the short ending of Mark. Or I was at a pastor's pastor's convention a few weeks ago, and we actually spoke about, John 7, the adulterous woman?
Oh, John 8, yeah.
John 8.
I think it's John 8, yeah.
Where she, like, because that's not, is that
where he's
part
writing,
of the
he's
original
writing in the
Bible?
sand or whatever,
Yeah, and is that part of the original Bible or not? And so one of the pastors kind of gave a presentation on why it should be part of the text. And it was semi-interesting. But it is a topic that, can we actually, in our lectionary, can we preach on it? Should we preach on it? I mean, we can preach on it, definitely, but should we preach on this text, even though it might not be original? So there, I think it comes in, or the long ending of Mark, same thing. I mean, it's in our small catechism. We have whoever believes and is baptized will be saved. Who does not believe will be condemned. And that's Mark 16:16. That's not in the short ending. And I think most scholars would agree that that is not part of the original. What does that change? I think that's then the follow-up question. Can we stop there and say, okay, this was in and this was out? Or do we kind of have to discuss, what does that actually change for how I read the Bible?
Yeah.
When I read the Bible, do I read Mark 16:9-20? Yes, I do. Should I? I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So you need some of these individuals that, some of these Germans that go over and they just, right, they're just like hyper focused as us Germans are, right? So back to kind of the narrative of how this is now applied. So you've got Schleiermacher, you've got kind of this high, you said a lot of this is liberalism and such, higher criticism. That's coming in through the academic circles.
Yeah,
so where does that go from there as we kind of go through the 18th century into the 19th century? Once again, getting to the point now where 9.97 million of Lutherans in Germany versus the 30,000 are now, we not subscribing to the Book of Concord in the way that we would. So what happens there?
That's a good question. I think it stays academia that kind of, I wouldn't call it a problem. I learned a lot there. But when I go to university, when I studied at a university, I would say that probably half of my fellow students did not believe in God.
And these are students that are studying theology.
That are studying theology to become pastors, or some of them want to become pastors, which is a crazy amount, I think. Just think about that at the seminary. What do we do with those people? It's not like a discussion on I don't know, transubstantiation, on consubstantiation or whatever, or on not even the bodily presence of Christ.
Not even the inerrancy of Scripture. It's whether or not there's even a
exactly.
God.
Is there some kind of God, and is Jesus God, maybe? And it was very interesting. There is a relatively popular podcast in Germany done by two professors, and they invite theology professors. And the last question is always, what is God for you? Not who, what is God for you? And the one answer that surprised me was there was a relatively liberal Catholic theologian on, and he said, I really believe that Jesus Christ is the incarnated God. And then one of the hosts said, oh, that would fall into a very conservative category here. I was like, that's shocking. I mean, we just celebrated 1,700 years of Nicaea. It's shocking to hear that answer. And even though I knew it, and that's not all of them, but it's not strange that a professor or a student would say, now God or Jesus is not really God or something like that. Then you can kind of use hermeneutical ways to align with the scripture, or claim to align with the scriptures at least. But that comes from, I don't really know where it comes from. I think in the Second World War or the Third Reich, we had the confessing church, and they went back to the confessions. They tried to go back to the confessions, but they went to the confessions together. So the Reformed and the Lutherans. And so after that, and the state church actually says they are a church of this event, the event of confessing together. That is something that is in their that's in their structure, inherent structure now. Not the confession itself necessarily, but this event of confessing together. And so I think that on a church leadership level made a big difference. That now they didn't, the differences between Lutheran and Reformed weren't seen as that big, because you had one enemy kind of thing.
And the enemy was?
The enemy was the Deutsche Christen. It was a group of Christians in the church in the Third Reich. And they wasn't one group, it was a party actually. So in Germany at the time you had church parties. And they were basically an arm of the NSDAP, so the Hitler's party. And they brought in no Jews on the pulpit, so meaning obviously the Christian Jews. Yeah. And then at the end, even you can't become a Christian if you were a Jew, some of them claimed. Then they kind of some of them wanted to connect it a bit to some heathen Nordic ideas. So it was a very strange movement. But then the confessing against it, and the confessing against the government taking over the church.
So it was less theological and it was more political. It was more against the fact that the government was infiltrating
the
versus
church.
Arguing over different theological topics.
It was probably both. Because it was,
okay.
On the one hand, it was the government infiltrating the church, and on the other hand, it was this church party which had very strange views infiltrating the church. And so you went back on, okay, but Luther said, or the confessions say this. So for example, there's one famous event in 1933. It's called the Sportpalastrede. It was just a speech by one of these Deutsche Christen. And he said, you have to defend the heroic Jesus spirit against the Rabbi Paul. And he claimed we have to get rid of the Old Testament. Anti-Semitism at its best.
Okay, so that played into the reasoning
It played into the reasoning why the others were so strongly opposed to them, obviously. But they were opposed to them, both the Reformed and the Lutherans together. So that's where the Barm Declaration comes from, kind of, whereas Sassi didn't subscribe to it for the main reason that they wanted to subscribe to it together, the Reformed and the Lutherans. And he said, no, we are two different churches. We are not in church fellowship. We can't do this together. But they did. And then after the Second World War, this Barmen Declaration became one of the big kind of documents for their to rebuild the church and rebuilding it, the Reformed and Lutherans together.
I've got a lot of questions here. Okay. So that's a wild history. I mean, as you're going through that, there's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
But that's playing into the church. So let's do, okay. So one thing I'm interested in is, so you said about 50%, you're studying theology, and 50%, believe in God, 50% don't. Why are those 50% that don't believe in God, why are they studying theology? Like, what's the point in this? What is it to them?
Yeah. So I think if you studied theology to become a teacher, that's the one option. You would become a teacher at a state school.
Okay.
It's an easy subject. It's a very easy subject. You don't need to know many things.
So you get a nice position.
You get it,
and it's not a big ask.
It's way more difficult, I guess, to study biology or to study maths. I mean, I couldn't do either.
Mm-hmm.
And theology for teachers is not that. At least the theology part isn't that difficult. And it's nice. I think a lot of people had a good time in youth group. Some are philosophically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of theology is attractive, which it is.
It's like a nice conversation over a pint.
Exactly. And that's the best conversations. I mean,
yeah.
We do know that.
Anecdotally from experience.
Yeah, we've heard.
Yeah.
But I think and then the idea of God is not, what is God? Like, we always come with a theistic view on what God is and what God should be. Like, to anyone, we are theists.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's one professor who wrote a book on atheistic theology. So the idea of how can we kind of do theology without having this person or three persons somewhere in heaven kind of thing. And so it's a hermeneutical way, I think, how a lot of them would kind of go about to say, yeah, I don't believe in Nicaea, for example, or what Nicaea says, but I do believe that God is so loving that, and whatever God is, but this power is loving, that the image of Christ being the incarnation of love kind of thing is just an image. And you and I mean, God is somewhere between you and I, and as soon as I make you an it, God kind of, I don't know, is gone or something. So there are ways to talk about theology and about God a lot without believing in him, I think.
That's interesting. So it's kind of a philosophical sport.
For some.
Yeah,
for some.
Not for all.
I always have to defend the State University in a way, because I remember one class, it was on Christology in the ancient church. And we kind of went from Paul to, I think we ended with Chalcedon. And the professor ended his last class with the words, I think Chalcedon actually reflects what the Bible says about Christ or about Jesus. And I was shocked by that, positively, because I was like, wow, that's quite a bold statement. I mean, for a state university, I didn't expect it, especially when you talk about the classes before, how we discussed them. So there are some very faithful guys, obviously not confessional Lutherans. They wouldn't be in that church if they would be. But you also have the guys that do it for sport. And some sport and theology is good as well, I think.
Yeah,
but it shouldn't be the main focus, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, as you're saying that, I would enjoy, I think, going for a year and like being there and conversing with, I always enjoy conversing with people that come from a different perspective, right? Because it kind of sharpens you, and you have to kind of think about things and go about it in angles and kind of think, okay, what's my data point? So I can see, I wouldn't want that to be imputed here into the church, right? Certainly at the lay level or from the preaching office or at the seminary or whatever. But I can see an attraction to those kind of conversations, right?
So for me, it was super attractive going there for 1 year. I went for 1 year to State University, because on the one hand, because it was in between, so I had studied theology for 4 years already. You also saw that you knew quite a bit, especially about the things we care about, like the Bible, the confessions. We were good at that. I didn't know what Kierkegaard said or what Punberg said or something maybe. But in these basics, what we would call basics at least, I would say, relatively well versed. And then it was very interesting to get into conversations with people and asking the same questions you're doing. Why do you study theology? How can that, why do you want to become a pastor? That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And getting weird answers at times, and sometimes very good answers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But more so weird answers.
Yeah. No, it's helpful today because I'm interested. I mean, do you follow Jordan Peterson at all?
A little bit.
Okay. And especially maybe more in his, like if you go back 5-6 years or whatever, when he started his biblical lectures, that he was doing. Because I think he shifted a lot, but I think at that point, he might have been very similar to, and what is it, Carl Jung that had a big influence on him? Yeah, Carl Jung.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about Carl Jung. I don't know. Do you?
Not much.
Okay. Was he German?
He was German. He was Austrian, I think. He was an Austrian psychologist.
Yeah.
He was kind of a student of Freud, and then departed from Freud, and they were more or less enemies.
Yeah. He's kind of big on archetypes, and that plays out in dreams and
then
things
you have
like that.
The idea of introvert, extrovert, for example, comes from him.
Yeah. So, I think Peterson was maybe similar to kind of what you would engage with over there, where it's like he was fascinated with the scriptures, but he wasn't even sure really that there was a God. Right?
Yeah.
So he would be in that category of someone that was very fascinated with the psychology of it, the philosophy of it. And there's a danger there, of course. But there's also, I mean, I enjoyed watching him because he would look at things in a way that maybe you hadn't before.
Yeah.
And not as a way of saying like, oh, that's the way to look at it, but to say, I haven't contemplated it that way. How do I hear this and then engage with that from a confessional, Orthodox Christian perspective? And then you can find like, oh, here's what he's doing. And if he shifted it this way, like that would make sense to him even more so. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you can apply it, you can say, okay, because that's how you're going to engage with people, right? I mean, that's what Aquinas kind of does, because he's dealing with a Christian church that's now very much engaging with non-Christians. And he's saying, okay, the person that grew up a Christian, when you say the Lord's Supper is the body and blood of Christ, they say, yeah, like, of course it is, right? That's just like, I know that, right? But now he's like, okay, but now we've got people that sounds really weird to. So how do we understand where they're coming from and then articulate what we believe in a way that communicates to them in a clear sense what we actually believe? And that caused him to, I mean, the Summa, right, is just, he poses all of these questions, gives all the possible answers, and then shows why those answers are wrong, and then why the Orthodox answer is the correct one. So it forces him to go about kind of looking at theology in this deep sense.
I want to mention, you just said Aquinas gave the Orthodox answers, but
question. Maybe he's at least giving a...
He gives answers, and he has a point.
So there's a value in being able to think through and wrestle with those kinds of things.
I think there are two books that came out. I think the one is the Jordan Peterson one. I think Wrestling with God, is that the title?
Yeah, I've read a little bit of it.
And so I haven't read it, but is it primarily on Genesis?
I don't think. It's been about a year, and I only read maybe the first 2 chapters, so I don't remember. Yeah.
But at least there was another book published, I think last year or 2 years ago, it's called Reading Genesis. I think it's Robinson.
Okay.
And she reads the English text. She is not a Bible scholar. She's not a Christian, as far as I know. And she reads it and kind of finds value in it, let's say. And it's interesting that people continue to do that, and I think rediscovering that as well. Not as the word of God, but can you say a first step towards it? Valuing it at least.
Yeah.
That it has something to say to us, even though it's thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And with these people and with these questions, I think we need to deal with, but we need to be critical about it as well, because we cannot just say, yeah, okay, it's great. I don't know, that love is the answer or something just because you find that somewhere in the Bible, and that's now your take on that's why the Bible is important to me. No, we kind of have to come to the point. God is the important one, and that's why love is important, not the other way around.
It's a valuable part of education, I think, but it has, like, you have to be really good at your catechesis.
Yeah.
So like if I've just got a normal layperson that comes to church once a month or something, and they're like, hey, like, I've been following Jordan Peterson, I get worried, right? Because I'm like, you're not going to know how to wrestle with his ideas and kind of keep your ground in a good confessional approach. But if you get to a point, then you're prepared for that, right? So it's like that's kind of the point of education. So I always get wary when someone's like, well, for the second graders, we want to let them see all of the different worldviews and then show them why Christianity is right. It's like second graders aren't ready for that. That's a high school thing. If you do, like, you have to indoctrinate, if that's the right word. I mean, just you have to train them up so they can see and understand the truth of Christianity, and then you have to do kind of that apologetics and that engagement with different worldviews and
it's
what.
Interesting. Wilhelm Löhe already makes that point in his 3 books on the church. He says, but no one has time to like know all the different. I mean, for him, it's the Christian denominations.
Yeah.
And so he makes the point, you just need to know the right one, which obviously is the Lutheran one. And then you kind of know already, okay, here's where the others are wrong. And I think that is true, because if you don't know anything or hold nothing to be true, how do you know that anything is wrong?
Yeah.
And I think that might be a problem with when it comes to seminary, for example, also in Germany, we going to Oberursel, from the beginning, you're basically encountering these state church theologians, which is good in a way, but in a different way, it's problematic, because that's where you start. You start with the questioning and not with a position.
Yeah.
In a way. And then you could argue, okay, but you're a theology student, you should have a position already. But you don't really. Like when I started theology, I didn't know anything.
Oh, same.
And I'm a pastor. I mean, I'm
first
a
year of
pastor's kid
SEM,
and everything.
yeah, same.
And so I remember this debate between a friend of mine and a girl, or young girl that studied theology to become a pastor at the state church. And she just lost every debate for the sole reason that she started studying just then. Like it was her first week or something, and the other guy was in his fourth year. And so you need this kind of position at the beginning and then be questioned. And I think it's important to be questioned. That's what I really like about the German system. At the same time, you can't forget that there must be a position.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like back to that indoctrination term. I remember, we have a kind of extended family member, and they've got some young kids, and you're like, well, and they're not really Christian, but they've got a Christian background or whatnot. But, their approach, and a lot of people have this approach. They're like, well, I don't really want to like indoctrinate my kid. I want to let them kind of grow up and make their own decision. It's like, well, you are whatever you're doing as a parent, you are indoctrinating your kid. So if you don't take them to church, if you don't talk about God, you're indoctrinating them into a atheistic or at least an agnostic. So you're training them, and everyone's training and forming their kids or students into something, right? So there's no way you can just not train your kid and let them just be in a completely free thinking type mentality. Like you're going to train them in one way or the other. The question is which path are you going to choose, right? And then at some point they're going to be able to then compare different ideas. But if it's not formalized, they're just going to be weak logical thinkers.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with having your kids decide when to or if to get baptized. It's the same thing. You're like, why? You don't let them decide to go to school or something like it.
Yeah.
So I think so that's why I would argue there are values to both systems when it comes to the university level. And I think that's kind of where Germany, even the Oberursel Seminary and the seminaries here in the US kind of differ. The seminaries in the US, especially Fort Wayne is the only one I attended, they are very strong on giving you the position. I think they struggle a bit with debate.
Yeah.
Because everybody is a confessional Lutheran.
So you end up debating minute topics, right?
Either you do that, or you just agree with the professor, because the professor is always, often right. Not always. But in Germany, you wrestle so much with problematic views that the position comes short at times.
So that's why Christian Einertsen's so great, because he studied at Oberursel for a year, right? So he was able to do that.
Yeah, probably.
Dr. Christian Einertsen.
Dr. Christian Einertsen. Yeah, that was
we'll
very
see him later today.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem. I don't have a position that much because I was in Fort Wayne only for a year.
Yeah. Oh, man. So I want to go back. So what happened theologically during the Third Reich and Hitler? What would you say? Like, what were his theological positions? What was the Reich's theological positions? How did that change the church?
The decision that was made was to basically anything that was happening, any cultural life became part of the party or the government. So that was the first thing, and they tried that with the church. It worked in some of these areas, church like regions, and in some it didn't. So you have some called the intact churches, is what we call them. You had like 4, Bavaria, for example, Württemberg, Lower Saxony, parts of Lower Saxony were seen as intact churches. The German Christians didn't become like the leading parties in that areas. At the same time, you had a lot of them that were kind of taken over by the government.
Okay, so that list you said they were not infiltrated so much by what the government was trying to. Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
But the government did establish they established the German Evangelical Church. So I think it was 1933 already, and they installed a bishop, a state bishop or national bishop. And he was a strict supporter of Hitler, and they tried to centralize. And as I said, it worked in some parts, and others it didn't. But that's probably the first move, because here, while before that time, the Lutheran and the Reformed Church were working together, but mostly not in church life, really, as far as I know. And here they became one church. And then the position was so in the NSDAP program from 1922, I think already, so way before they took power. They have in the second last article, it says, or last article, they want a positive Christendom or Christianity, which they say which basically wants to take away individual freedom. The famous phrase is, or Gemeinnutz vor Eigennutz, so the betterment of the people before the betterment of myself, kind of thing. And this positive Christianity, it's not quite clear what that means. And Hitler himself, I doubt that he was a Christian.
I was going to ask.
I really don't. So he was a Catholic by birth or by baptism.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah. He was Austrian, so obviously.
Okay, yeah. That's right.
But at the same time, he hated the Catholics. He hated the Catholics. So, and because the Catholics were stronger, the Catholics had so many different groups and clubs. There was a Catholic social life, just in a way that, as you have it here with, I don't know, you have Lutheran hospitals, you have Lutheran schools, Lutheran everything.
Yeah, but it's nothing compared to the Catholic. Yeah,
it's not. But the Catholics back in the days had all
Knights
these
of Columbus and stuff like that.
You had Catholic soccer teams, for example. And yet, so he really struggled with kind of infiltrate the Catholic Church, because it's obviously also a universal church. It's quite difficult to tell somebody from a universal church that their members from a different country are worse than the own ones. And with the German church,
because he wanted that national identity,
yeah,
he saw the Catholics in there as a way of undermining that.
I think that is one part of it. The other part is that they had a countercultural system. So, and the government wanted to take over every part of life. And that didn't work as well in the Catholic regions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In the German, one must argue that in the Protestant regions, the support for the NSDAP was huge, way higher than in the Catholic regions. So it was not like the church didn't want to follow Hitler or didn't like Hitler or whatever. They did. Most of them did. Or a lot of them, at least.
Yeah.
And then you have the centralization. And then at some point, Hitler loses kind of focus for the church. They're bigger fish to fry. But now you have the inner church relations, that kind of stuff. You have Barmen, as I mentioned in...
What was it?
Barmen, the Barmen Declaration.
Yeah.
At which kind of the confessing church tries... Bonhoeffer is part of that, for example. Tries to defend against the infiltration of the church. And then later on, the question remains, are the intact churches, so the ones that were not infiltrated, allowed to work together with the other churches, the ones that were infiltrated or not? And then this confessing church split.
On that issue. Some said we can
Some
work
said
with
we
them,
can
some
work
said
with
we
them.
can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's predominantly the Lutherans, Bavaria, for example, that said we can, because they were themselves intact. It was just with someone outside, while for the others, it would have been the same church, like the neighboring congregation, for example, that could have been infiltrated. And that's all before the war. That's all like 1937, I think, is when we're at a high point of these discussions. Then the war comes in. That's, not much happening anymore, I think, in that
on the
region.
church side because
On the church side, because it's war and
everyone's focused on something else. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of pastors were among the first that were drafted.
Okay.
Just because you don't need them. They're not building anything. Yeah.
Okay.
If the government is not interesting in spiritual
used
food,
economics,
then you don't need it.
Yeah. So do you think Hitler at any point was Christian? Like, do you think? I mean,
this is a question. So I don't know much about Hitler's personality,
right?
Really,
and I don't even mean like piety.
No.
Like living it out, but like
I don't think so.
If you were to get him in a back room and be like, "Is Jesus the Son of God?" You don't think so.
I don't think so, and I don't think so. It's just it doesn't work together. First of all, I think, but also he never expresses any genuine, I would say, support for it. He would say things that sound good to the Christian ear. His followers had to go to church before he gained power to show, okay, we're a Christian group. So now the Christians kind of liked him.
Right, yeah. You got to win over.
But that's politics. That's not genuine, I would say.
Yeah, which is the same for most of our presidents. Like the recent ones, if you
exactly.
go back,
I mean, Trump with the Bible, for example, or whatever you have.
Maybe Trump, Obama, I don't know Bush per se, but like they were
you do
Christian.
something.
They have to be Christian.
Yeah, I mean, who was the only one? Romney, who was Mormon, I think, is Mormon.
Romney was Mormon, and then who's the Indian guy?
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of a guy still. Roth, I don't know, but yeah.
So it's quite interesting.
Ramaswamy, is that it?
Yeah, he didn't.
I forget. Vivek, is that right? Yeah,
Vivek,
I don't know, but yeah, he's
ran
Hindu, which is kind of.
And I mean, even what's the New York mayor again? Modami.
Yeah, Muslim.
Yeah, but he has to portray himself as a faith. He has faith, kind of thing.
Yeah.
He has a religion.
Mm-hmm.
So that is just important because it's important to some people.
Yeah. Was there pagan influence, do you think, in like the Third Reich? I've heard some of that. Yeah. So what did that look like? Or a cult even.
Yeah. So, what's his first name? Albert Rosenberg, I think is his name. Anti-Semitism and Nordic heathen influences, I think, are very closely connected in that time. And they never took off. Like, you try to kind of to have some kind of event, something so that the kids don't go to church anymore, that they don't go to confirmation class. Instead, you do something else. And that was oftentimes, or some try to have some Nordic myths. But I'm not quite sure what that looked like.
Mm-hmm.
I think mostly it was a militarization of the state, of the people, marching and all that stuff, which didn't really have an idea behind it that had any metaphysical strength or something.
Mm-hmm. So a little bit more of like cultural tradition.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Not tradition. I think that was a big part to get to the point that I like my people more than I like myself.
Mm-hmm.
Marching. If you march the whole day, you will at some point lose your individuality.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and that was just a small piece, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that the government really was metaphysically inclined.
Yeah,
it was very much on race base and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what happened to post World War II? That ends. Obviously, you have everything with the Soviet Union at that point as well, right? With Berlin and such. Yeah. So, like, what does the Christian life or the church life look like post World War II?
So that was it was blooming. That was. I think similar in America, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Kind of in the 50s, everybody was more or less a member of a church. Many, many new buildings were built.
Right after the war.
Relatively soon. I mean, some of them obviously had to be rebuilt, or there was none anymore. But was
Germany as economically beat up after World War II as they were in World War One?
Way worse.
Way worse after World War II than World War
World War One didn't really. Oh, you mean by the other governments?
Well, in general, because obviously in World War One there was the Versailles Treaty. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean that decimated the economy, right?
So it was a totally different situation because after World War II, Germany was destroyed. After World War One, Germany, I think World War One was not fought on German soil. Or if, then very little, almost none. So it was in France and all that, but almost not in Germany itself. So that was okay, but then the Versailles Treaty kind of destroyed the economy or hindered it from going up or something.
Yeah.
Hurt Germany.
It decimated.
It did hurt. And then World War II, Germany itself was destroyed. But the approach by the Allies was completely different. So the Marshall Plan, which was an American investment plan, which was supposed to be extended to all over Europe, but the Soviet Union said kind of their countries like Poland, Eastern Germany can't take the money, so they made their own plan. But this they lent money and tons of
So it's like the opposite.
It was the opposite. It was, we need to rebuild this country. And there was a different plan. I think it was a Metternich or something. Like there was a different idea to really decimate Germany this time, to like separate it into 5 different countries, bring it back to the 17th century kind of thing economically. And I guess good that didn't happen, but this other plan with rebuilding took hold and made Germany pretty much into the relatively strong economy it is today.
Okay.
So in the 50s, we have the so-called Wirtschaftswunder, the economical miracle in the 50s and 60s, where Germany just grew, the economy just grew. And everybody was pretty much a cultural Christian, at least. And there were a lot of people going to church, and going to church was relatively normal. But before that, in the 19th century, that was not the case. So this was now a time of real revival, maybe. But that faded away again at some point. But the churches were very strong, and the churches was seen in the young republic, so in the 50s, as something to that kind of keeps the state in check. So that kind of helps against this whole Nazi idea. So the churches gained a bit of power back, even though it was pretty much handed to them. And I mean, our constitution says mentions God right away, like at the very beginning. And I think that's an important issue or aspect, that the churches were really seen as a social factor. Like for society, the churches were necessary. And you didn't really have any other religion at the time. Those came in the 60s when we brought in workers from Italy first, and then later Turkey and all that.
So that's where you started to get Catholicism and...
I mean, we had Catholicism before.
Okay, yeah.
Southern Germany is Catholic. So we have 50-50 Protestant, Catholic, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where does that then take us to today? What's the landscape in Germany look like today?
The landscape is today that still pretty much 50-50, or we just dropped below 50% membership. So less than 50% of the German population are members of a Christian church.
Really?
Yeah. We are like 49 point, I don't know, but
yeah.
And I mean, obviously we have the child abuse cases in the Catholic Church especially, but also in...
Did that happen in Germany too?
Bro, big time.
Big time,
Yeah, it was horrible. And so that's a big issue, obviously. But also just the people are not interested. A lot of people are just not interested. They don't care for it anymore. And I just watched something yesterday that the main reason why people leave the church is they just don't believe anymore. It's not any other reason. I mean, in Germany, the big thing is you leave the church after you finish studying, because then for the first time you have to pay these church taxes. They are very low. They're definitely not tithing, by the way. They always say they're high, but I know they are not. It's like 2% or something.
Okay, yeah.
So I would argue that today we have 50% are members of a church that pretty much splits in 50-50 Protestant Catholic. So we have 25% Catholic, 25% evangelical Protestant. And then you have this small splitter groups, like you have the SELK, which is 30,000, bit less. You have obviously also like Baptists and stuff like that, all of that. So in total, we might be at 52% of the population, but it's shrinking and very, very fast.
And that other 48% or 50%, what's the makeup there? Like, is there a big Muslim presence? Is there a return of some kind of paganism? Because I know, like, in some of the Nordic areas, there's a return. Even in the U.S., there's a return for paganism. And it's not like they wouldn't be staggering numbers, but if you look at the uptick, the percentage increase is pretty.
I don't think... So we obviously have a high number of Muslims. I mean, we have, I think, 10 million people with Turkish background.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them are Muslim, and what does it mean to be a Muslim is also different. As in, being a Christian means you're a member of a church you never went, but that means what makes you Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So there, it's very difficult really to say how many they are because they're not that good at bookkeeping.
Yeah.
I mean, with baptismal records, we're great.
Yeah.
So I would argue they're probably, I think, 5 to 6 million.
Okay.
Muslims,
Mm-hmm.
different intensity, let's say.
Well, that's 50% of the Lutheran Church, right?
That is true.
Yeah.
That would be true.
Hmm.
And then you have, and in some areas, it's more than 50% by far.
Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of return in the younger generations? Because you'll see that certainly in the U.S. I think a little bit in not the EU, in the UK. I think there's kind of a return there as well. So we had David Ramirez on, and he's talked about that more on the U.S. side, but I think it mirrors some of what's in England, that there's a return to conservatism, but also a return to traditionalism and to the church, kind of in younger men. Are you seeing that in Germany or not so much?
I heard the same about France.
Okay.
That's the same thing, like record numbers of adult baptism and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see it in Germany. You always have some, but the numbers are so small that I don't think we have kind of a movement there yet. We would probably rather have a movement in young Muslims that become stronger Muslim than their forefathers. Like they are prouder of their background. Not all of them, obviously, but that is happening. And you do have some influences, confessional influences, but confessional Lutheran specifically, or even Catholic or Orthodox. I think that's kind of Orthodox and Catholic is a big one in the US. I don't really see it, no.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think one part is because it's not known. Germany was 100 years ago, 150 years ago already, the Pope and his guys complained about Germany the most for being too liberal and all that. So I think that might be one part of it. We have never, or for a long time, the church has its cultural influence, which kind of helps to smooth it. You don't need this harsh reaction kind of thing. As I think, let's take gender identity topics. I think in America, it went very far, very quick. And then the reaction was extreme or strong, at least. In Germany, it was a bit slower. It took a bit longer. And so the reaction isn't that strong either. Because it's just... it makes you tired. So you just don't answer. You don't know at which point do you have to react, and then you just never react. It's just a slower death kind of thing.
It's like frog in the water.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
Is that something built into kind of the German ethos?
Ooh, that's probably too strong of a word. I don't think if there is a thing like the German ethos, that would be my main question.
Oh, there's definitely
probably.
a German. It's a poem. I think it's by Kipling. I don't know if it's by Kipling. Do you know Rudyard Kipling? I think I asked you the other day.
Yeah,
I was asking about I love. I was driving down to Arkansas. Was it Arkansas? Was it Arkansas? Yeah, I think it was Arkansas 2 weekends ago. So I had a 10-hour drive both ways.
Yeah.
And I listened to Rudyard Kipling poetry for like 5 hours.
Ew.
Yeah, it was pretty.
I don't think I've
pretty
ever
wild.
listened
Yeah,
to
it was a
poetry
very
for 5
unique
hours.
drive for me. But I think it's him, or maybe it's somebody else. But they've got this poem about like when the Saxon learned how to hate.
Okay.
And so the whole point is like, I mean, if you take kind of like Italian or whatever, like Italians are like fiery, right?
Yeah,
So like it's very easy to like fire up an Italian on something, like for good or bad,
Yeah.
right? But the German's very like slow moving, calculative. Like it takes a lot to get a German to kind of like really get riled up. Which, I mean, I think it's true. I mean, I'm German. My grandmother, lived in Germany until she was 32. So I mean, I grew up in a very strong German ethos on my dad's side, on my mom's side. So it's just, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there might be truth to it, in the sense that radical ideas, you can't really say that with the German history in mind, but but maybe it's
Well, I mean, that's the point of the point. Like, there's a point where they learned how to hate, and it was. I think his point is that it's like it's a slow burn in the German.
Yeah.
Like it. But once it gets going, then it's like a freight train. But it's tough to get things moving in that way.
That could be, and maybe especially after the Second World War. And I think the life in the Republic, like after World War II, was so good in general, economically speaking, safety speaking, like pretty much any issue you have, that it was comfortable to be whatever happens.
Yeah,
is comfortable. And I mean, we do trust the government more than Americans do. I think in general, we have a stronger government. Deep state, maybe.
Yeah. we were talking about that the other night.
Yeah.
It's just like I was like, yeah, if you're under 30, if you're under 35 in America, like you're a conspiracy theorist. Like it just depends on like what conspiracy theorist, right? And that's not so much the case in Germany.
I wouldn't say so. We're getting there, but it's mostly.
Ben, do you know any non-conspiracy theorists? In your age group, not like your parents or grandparents.
Yeah, but they're not very deep thinkers.
They're not very deep thinkers. Oh man.
So the people that are kind of concerned with the state of Germany and kind of are the ones that are really reacting strongly, it's more political reaction. So immigration, for example, and those things, but not really a religious revival. And I mean, we have Eastern Germany is, I think, after the Czech Republic, the second most atheistic, agnostic area in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they did the communists did a great job there.
Man, they decimated. Because I lived in Prague, like we talked about, for like 5 months or something like that, and it was just because I think was it the Velvet Revolution or I think like in the 80s or something like that, was when finally the communist regime was kicked out of the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
But you could still just see the after effects still. Like I remember I would ride on the trolley or whatever. And it'd be like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. And it's just like everyone just sits and everyone's quiet, And if I would go to Italy or Germany, that was not the case. Like if I would take public transport, like people are talking and, but everyone was just kind of like they had been in a slave state for 40 years, which was true.
Interesting.
Right. At least there.
But in Poland, for example, being Catholic became part of the identity. Against the Germans on the one hand and against Russians or the Soviets on the other. Just like in Ireland, being Catholic is part of your identity, which is not the case in Eastern Germany, for example. And it was for the longest time in Western Germany, it was you were Christian, something. You were confirmed and all that. And we even have religious classes in school. So you could call us a religious state. But we aren't. So I would say it's probably that. It's a slow, everything moves too slow to kind of react harshly. And we are obviously I don't know how harsh reactions should be as a Christian. Like that's probably the other issue. What should you say or how should you say it? Or What should you do? Maybe actively. Where we are softer spoken, even though our language is apparently not, which I always disagree with.
Let's hear it. Give a good German phrase.
Yeah, I mean, it's Schmetterling. It's not Schmetterling. So I think, so for me personally, I think the way how to communicate is out of control at the moment in some countries in the world. Or it's just a terminology that is used. How do you speak about other people that I wouldn't talk about, even though they might be my worst enemy? That's reserved for a soccer stadium kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. That's why it works, right? You go to the soccer stadium, you get it out of your system. People are lighting up flares. You know.
Maybe you should try that.
Yeah. Oh, man. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll hop back. All right. Bennett's got his thumbs up. That means we're back.
Very good.
So let's zoom back into the SELK.
Yeah.
To the that part of the German Lutheran Church that's in fellowship with us.
Yeah.
So what does that look like right now? Are there issues that are being discussed? Are they pretty, lockstep in what they believe? What's going on there?
Yeah, the main issue that is going on for actually since they have been established in 1972, there is the discussion on women's ordination, and it kind of came to the forefront like 5 years ago. So that is the big topic that's going on, and that is really hurting the church. We have at the moment, we have two different kind of groups, working groups. The one is the working group unity. The other one is the working group separation. So it's
so what's the unity and separation?
So they work on how can we stay one church, and how can we separate in peace.
Over women's ordination.
That's the main issue. I mean, you obviously have a lot of issues that kind of cling to that, but that is the issue at hand.
What's the percentages like? Is it like a 50-50, 70-30? What would be your guess?
It's difficult to say. So some congregation, actually, they did kind of a questionnaire on it, but not every congregation approached questioning the parishioners in the same way. So the pastor just sent in, we are against or we are pro. In another congregation was the elders, and then another asked every congregation member, no matter if they go to church or not, as long as you're on the list, kind of, you were asked. And so it's quite difficult to say. Usually the ones that kind of asked more people were more pro-women's ordination. I would say the pastors just defended the view, let's say, in general, against it. So last year we had a convention, a pastors' convention, and in Germany the case is if the pastor convention and the synod have to agree on, so synod is 50-50, 50% laity, 50% ministers, and both of them have to agree to change something theological in the constitution or to get a new hymnal or something like that. So the pastors, I think, with like 60%, 70% maybe, somewhere in between that.
That's it.
Defended the traditional view, which is quite a high number for Germany, I would say.
Okay.
And I think you see a difference in age groups. So if you would do the same thing in 10 years, it will probably be higher, that number. And so the younger ones, the number ones, are less in favor.
Yes, that makes sense.
General,
okay, so that would mirror with...
Yeah. It's pretty much boomer and not boomer, or what is it, millennial generation thing. Not as strict, I would say. So you always have a few that are pro-women's ordination. But when you look at the congregations and the members, that looks differently. So you have... I don't have numbers. I don't want to really say a number, but it's a high number pro-women's ordination by far.
So the lay level more so.
The lay level.
So why is that the case? Because I'm thinking why wouldn't they just join the state church? Like, what's the big differentiation between the SELK and the state church? So if you believe that, why would you go to the SELK? Why would you be part of this micro synod?
I mean, first of all, most of them, or most of us, me, myself included, are or were members of the SELK from baptism.
Okay.
So it's not like we have some that join the church and are very strong, have very strong opinions on topics. I think converts are always or oftentimes like that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I must say I love the SELK. Like that institution, my heart is there. And I think you have a lot of parishioners where it's the same thing. And I would really not want to give up. Like I have some friends that would argue that way. Like, oh, they should just leave.
Mm-hmm.
It would be better if they just left, especially the laity. And I can't go that far because you would lose a lot in the state church, I think. I think there's a lot of... You would basically argue that the only issue that separates the state church and the SELK, or the confessional church and the ELCA kind of affiliated churches, would be the topic of women's ordination. But we separated in 1830s.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly there must be other issues. And I think there are issues that, for me, are closer to heart even. So just our worship, the liturgical worship, would be one.
Mm.
The view on the Lord's Supper is another one. So I would never recommend anyone to join the state church, even if I disagree on that topic maybe with that person. I think there is a good reason to stay on the SELK. Another option would be to have like another synod, like a third synod, that's somewhere in between, but that would be another micro synod.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that would work out really either. And I don't think it would be good. I think having them in your pews, work with that. Be joyful about it.
Yeah.
And then try to teach. Not giving up on that. I don't think we should give up on parishioners, on topics.
Yeah, there's a different level for a parishioner versus a pastor.
Versus a pastor, sure. But for pastors, I do think being a pastor in a church that has some issues with some of my positions, let's say women's ordination, for example, I would also not try to get rid of the pastors, if you can say so. Mm-hmm. I think it would be a question, obviously, if they outnumber, and then if that changes, so all of a sudden I'm in a church that has women's ordination, that changes something, for sure. But that would be probably the tipping point, for me at least, personally. And I know there are others. I know there are others that really want to, because these pastors at least show, depending on how they go about their own personal opinion. So the ones that promote it the whole time, that's a problem. You can't go out and promote your topic the whole time that goes against your church's position. You can have it in some senses, but that's just not good stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
Because it raises more questions for the parishioners than keeping quiet.
You're causing division.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. But having a different opinion would not disqualify you for me, because also there are things that you subscribe to a church that you know pays you less than the state church would. So you're not better off economically or anything, any non-religious, non-theological reason. So it must be something theological.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is. And I always claim that there is a theological reason why these people are in the SELK. And there must be something that keeps them in the SELK. So they're not that convinced of other churches or other doctrines to just join a different synod.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for me, is a positive thing. That's something to rejoice in. And that is something, I don't know if we always see that.
Mm-hmm.
Like this positive side of all the problems that there are, for sure.
So why do you think that the women's ordination one just kind of keeps coming up? Like why? So let's assume, because you probably know many of these guys, right?
Yeah.
So let's assume these guys, ascribe to the Book of Concord. They've got a quia approach to Scripture. How do they take both of those views? How do they take that view and then reconcile that with women's ordination?
I mean, women's ordination is not mentioned in the Book of Concord, at least.
Correct. Yeah.
Like that would be the easiest way to kind of reconcile yourself with that.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to go to Augsburg Confession 5, Augsburg Confession 7, and then 14 to kind of grasp that. In the Bible, I think you have, let me not say a number, but you have different options. The first option is say, I don't care what the Bible says on that topic.
Mm-hmm.
That would be outright disqualifying for a pastor, I would say, or for anyone really. That's obviously a position that many people take. Yeah, the Bible might say that, but it's 2,000 years old. I don't care. Then you have the idea, yeah, the Bible says that, but it's in a cultural, like it's the context that counts in this sense. And we obviously have passages where we say, okay, that is the context. And so you have the debate at least on the biblical basis. So you just discuss the biblical text. And there the question is where to draw the line. Like, do we have to draw the line if you disagree with my interpretation, but we are still interpreting the text? Still trying that. Can we agree to disagree if we allow each other and if we acknowledge that we are still interpreting the text? And I think there are different answers to be given there. I don't think it's a clear-cut yes or no answer. And the third one would be, I read the text, and the text is as it is or is positioned against women's ordination. That's where I leave it at. And I think we're always tempted. We are tempted in both ways. We are tempted in the cultural way. So to just go, okay, we somehow have to reconcile our culture and how we think in modernity about women and men, about jobs maybe, about vocation. And we have to reconcile that with the Bible, with the scriptures. And the other temptation is we have to go against this first temptation. Like that's the going a countercultural impulse becomes the main focal point. I think there are two dangers, general dangers, not just for this topic, that we have to deal with and that we have to think about. And I think both are really tempting. But if you don't fall into that pit hole, I think debate is possible. Debate means we try to get to a conclusion together. Talking to each other is possible. Maybe that's better, because I think some are, for the last 10 years, 15, 20 years, there's not a new revelation coming out. Like, it's not something new that we learn when we continue discussing the topic. The positions are clear. And now I think a lot just want a decision, in the SELK. And I don't know if I'm at that point. Yeah.
Of wanting like a decision.
Of wanting a decision, and we finally kind of get over it.
Well, it sounds like you've got time on your side to where, like, if you just wait 10 years, at least on the pastoral side, you're saying.
But not on the, we don't.
Not on the lay side?
Because it was brought to the forefront. There's no, it's just on everybody's mind. We have congregations that are debating it and so on. So it is on. And you can't, we let the genie out of the bottle kind of thing.
Yeah. What do you think the timeline looks like?
So if I'm correctly informed, I think we have these two working groups that are both working for 2 years. So it should be 27 or 28, I'm not quite sure, when they kind of come back to the synod and show their findings. And from there will probably be a decision made on that synod, or they will only agree on one way forward. So they say, okay, we go with unity, for example, and then they would have to implement whatever they decided within the next 5 years, for example. Or if they go,
so unity would mean there's not going to be a split.
Not a split.
And there's going to be some kind of vote that's going to say,
I guess there would be some kind of vote that says either in 2 years or 3 years' time, I guess there's some kind of vote on which of the two directions do you want to go? Which one do you want to pursue? Which doesn't mean that at that day, the church has split or will split. But it would probably mean that if they go with separation, with splitting, that in the 5 years coming or something, that would be.
Then you would end up with two different
Probably, yeah. And I mean, it might be like in Australia that the synod takes one decision and then there is kind of
a group splinters off.
Yeah. And I see that as likely.
You see that as likely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's breaks my
either
heart.
way
Either
that
way,
goes,
either way,
there's going to be some kind
and
of
that
splinter.
Does break my heart. Because I don't think that I think the pastors that are against women's ordination would probably try to leave. I think that's the way you have to say it, try to leave the synod. The problem is you lose like a third of your retirement if you leave the synod. So the synod it's very financially, it's a very, very difficult institution, let's say, where the finances come from, how the pastors are paid. And it's always from the running budget, from the annual budget. And so the question would be, who pays for the remaining pastors when like half the synod members left?
Yeah. How do you avoid that?
Splitting
or the shift to women's ordination?
Prayer. Probably. I don't think I would give you $1 million if I had an answer to that.
Yeah.
And I think we would, every pastor in the SELK, pretty much every pastor in the SELK would tip in, give you $1 million as well.
Would they be concerned about losing fellowship with like the LCMS?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's obviously an issue. We would be isolated first.
Yeah.
Because, or the other answer would be we could join the LWF right away.
Do you think they would do that? Do you think those that are advocating for that would want
probably in time?
In time.
So there is a even smaller synod in Germany, which is somewhere between SELK and State Church. They have like 1,000 members, and they're only in the very southwest of the country, Freiburg, Karlsruhe, and they are they are a member of the LWF, but I don't think a full member or observer status, something like that. Have not subscribed to Leuenberg, which is like the European version, or they have church fellowship. It's the basic document for church fellowship between Reformed and Lutherans. So they have not subscribed to that, if I'm not mistaken. So they're somewhere in between, but I wonder how long they will still last. I mean, they have lasted for a while, but it's the inner congregational divisions that make it so difficult. Like, who keeps the sanctuary? Who keeps the building?
Yeah.
And okay, so if it's a 50-50 split, but even a 90-10 split, how do we deal with that? Will the members just remain in the same church, like a congregation, or will they split because their convictions are so strong that they can't go that way, even though they might be the only ones? And what do we do with these only ones?
Yeah, it's messy.
It is messy. It is definitely messy.
Well, I hope you guys don't go the route of Australia. Breaks my heart to see. I mean, Australia, Japan.
Yeah, that's true. I think I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would bet on it.
Oh, man. But you said the majority of pastors are against it.
Yeah, the majority of it. So we can't legally change it, really. The only option is separating or splitting. Because legally, with the pastor's choice or the pastor's decision, the synod or the lay people don't even have the right to vote on anything, because it has to go through the pastor's convention to actually get into the synod. Yeah.
But they would bypass that because the pastors would not vote for it. You're saying?
No, they didn't. They don't bypass it, but now they have this 2 working groups, so they would.
So that's the genie out of the bottle, you mean?
The genie out of the bottle was earlier. That was when we asked the congregations.
Okay.
and I guess there are a lot of topics where that could be the case, like anywhere in the world. Like I always say, the LCMS, the Falsisa, my South African church, they are also just lucky that it's not on that some topics are not on the table. Because as soon as topics like are put on the table, you see how different opinions can actually be, I think.
Yeah, we've seen that in other areas in the LCMS, not with this. I mean, I don't think there's any possibility that in the next 20 years this becomes an issue in the LCMS. Which is why it's weird from what I see on that front to see those being kind of talking points or like big conversations in other areas. It's just, I think there was a point perhaps, in the last 20 years where maybe if the genie would have gone out of the bottle, like we might have been in trouble, but it's just not the case anymore. Every year that goes by, the new graduates out of SEM, that's unthinkable. Whereas I think some of the retiring pastors, it would have been more conceivable to have that discussion. So I think every year we go, it's just, unless if things shift in the far off future, there's just no way that's going to ever make, like, it's not even a talking point.
And I mean, that's a bit of how it is in Germany as well with the younger pastors coming out. We just almost have none.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
the numbers are so small. I think we are 100 pastors now, or the SELK has 100 pastors now, and in 10 years it's like 60.
Okay.
So that's
an issue there too.
how quick the numbers slim or fade. And I think that's, I really don't know what the future holds for Christianity or Lutheranism, confessional Lutheranism in Europe, in Germany in specifically, just because everything changes so fast. And I'm not an optimist. Like, personality-wise, I'm not an optimist.
You're not? No.
I'm not. And it's horrible. I would love to be one.
I am.
So Dortmund.
It's fun, but it's not always fun for those around you.
Yeah. So I don't know. I try to be optimistic. I try, and
well, call me up. Call me up once a month, and I'll throw my optimism at you.
There you go. That would be
get
good.
you fired up.
So in this question, what makes me optimistic? Maybe that is something I can say.
Yeah.
What makes me optimistic is the love for this church, for the SELK, for that church, which I think is important, because if we don't have that, then any disagreement could be the one that you want to split over.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not trying to diminish the importance of this topic. I'm just trying to, I think it has something to it, to just like the institution you are in. It's something, the position, we mentioned that earlier in a completely different setting, the position that you learned, like the place you were put in, is the first thing to love. And then you can still disagree with it or with things and be questioned about it. But that is the place I was brought up in. I was baptized and I was brought up in. I was confirmed. I had my Bible studies and all that. It's more obviously than just the right doctrine, for sure. For me, church is more than that. And there are things I struggle with, obviously. And I mean, I'm not a member of that church anymore because I moved away. So
yeah.
I can talk about it in third person kind of
now that
categories.
you're in South Africa.
But still, I really try to be hopeful. And I think there are some reason for it. Not too much, though. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to end.
Let's do that.
Because we've got to head to the pastors' conference.
There you go.
Yeah. So we've got a 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive in front of us. And yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun. This has been really good.
Thank you very
much. Thank you very much. Cheers.